Hi, my name is Jessie and welcome to my yarn studio. Alright, so this is the second episode. Kind of exciting. Hopefully I'm getting better at it. Um, and I have a lot of stuff to show you from last time. So for context, my name is Jessie. I am a student currently studying in Boston, although I grew up in San Francisco. And I have been on a knitting and crochet journey over the past like 6 months or so, since the beginning of the school year, because originally I sewed for my hobbies, but I couldn't bring my machine to school with me because it's too bulky and I'm in a quite small room. So I thought knitting and crochet, which I had previously done a little bit in the past, would be the perfect way to spend my time because quite small, quite portable, just seemed like a good situation. So the format is that first I show you my finished object since last time, and there was a last time, so I do have finished objects since last time. Kind of exciting, pretty minor. Then I show you my works in progress and then my yarn acquisitions or general acquisitions, because I do have a general acquisition today. So let's dive right into it. So the first main finished object since last time is the brown sweater. I was working on that, and it's kind of like my second proper knit project. Well, it's like my third. So the first knit project I did was a very simple black raglan sweater. The pattern was from Bellish, which was a free app for knitting patterns. Unfortunately, they closed down since then, but there's a lot of free guides to simple raglan sweaters that you can find online. And then my second proper knitting project, I think, that I finished was a green ribbed hat. Pretty simple. It was a gift. I don't have it anymore, but it was good practice for purling because I had previously found out that I was purling wrong and twisting all my stitches. So it was a good reinforcement of how to purl properly, although I do have an update for that. But anyways, then I worked on a couple things that I haven't finished. I had a cream sweater. I'm still thinking on what I want to do with that. But then I got this brown yarn for my birthday from my parents, thank you. And I thought I just wanted to make it into a special project. So I made it into a sweater because that is what I will wear most. So here is the finished object. Got it right here. Very exciting. So it has a little bit of a history, as most of my knits do. I am a chronic frogger, I guess you could call it. I like making things and then unraveling them. And it's good in one hand because I tend to like the finished object probably better than I would if I just continued. You know, it's better to fix your mistakes and take things slowly and make things intentionally. And, you know, not just be all about like finish, finish, finish. At least that's how I like to knit and sew as well. So yeah, originally this was I was following a pattern for a saddle shoulder construction. Also a pretty similar concept of a sweater, but it just wasn't working out. I don't know, I don't think the yarn was right for it. I think I needed something that was straighter or airier. And it was causing some weird bunging here. So I restarted it. Both of them were top-down mock neck sweaters. This one is too. But instead, I freehanded it based on the knowledge that I had gained from the last one. And it is better. It's definitely better. It's not perfect, but that's okay. And I definitely like it a lot. So here it is, all finished. You can see the yarn. It's a lovely tonal brown. It is hand dyed. It's Madeline Tosh Superwash Merino. It's like in worsted or Aran weight. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's worsted. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I'm super into like super variegated hand dyed yarns, but this one there's not that much variation, so I like it. I think it just adds interest to a plain stockinette project. But yeah, so I finished it. So what I ended up doing is it was heavily inspired by the sweater number 9, I think. Sweater number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, which is a ribbed collar, top down, to my knowledge, with relatively emphasized raglan stitches, and just goes into sleeves and a cuff. So that's what I did. I have 2x1 ribbing at the top. This is just my interpretation. I don't actually have the pattern because it's the wrong gauge for this. But anyways, 2x1, I did 2x1 ribbing at the top, and then I split for sleeves, and for the raglan stitches, instead of just increasing on either side of 2 knit stitches, I continued the purl from the ribbing at the neck and then increased on either side of the purl. So there's a more noticeable divot, which I really like. It's got more of an emphasized raglan, as I said. So yeah, I continued it down, then split for body, sleeves, cuff. I continued the sort of raglan pattern of 2 stitches and a purl down the length of the sleeve, and then also down the length of the body. And then it meets up with the ribbing in the sleeves and the body, which I personally think is really cool. You kind of don't see it because with this yarn, the ribbing tends to be super elastic, and it just like scrunches together, so it often just looks like stockinette, especially when it's not like proper ribbing, it's just in a couple places. But that's okay. It will probably show more if I were to block it, which on that I have not yet blocked it because I don't really have a good setup to do so, and it wears just fine right now, so I will probably not block it for a little while, but we'll see. I think it would help it fit-wise a little bit because the arms are a little bit tighter than I would like and a tiny bit shorter, because I was worried about running out of yarn, which in hindsight is a little ridiculous because I had most of, probably like 3/4 of a 100-gram hank left. So I had plenty, but I did not know that, which is one of the woes of writing your own patterns and being less experienced. You're not exactly sure how much yarn you'll need, but it ended up okay, and I can just stretch it out when I block it, and you know, as I wear it, it stretches out a little bit more, so that's fine. So yeah, and then continue down. It has really wide ribbing at the bottom, which I really like. I think it's fun. Also, the sweater I'm wearing today has wider ribbing at the bottom. I don't know if you can see it. This one, actually, should have said this in the introduction. So the sweater I'm wearing today, actually, is a thrifted Tommy Hilfiger sweater. It's 100% cotton. I really like this composition for a sweater, although I don't really enjoy knitting with cotton, so we'll see. But I ended up taking it in and cropping it and moving the waistband up. And I love the way it fits, and I love the V-neck, which will be important later. But yeah, back to the finished object that I was supposed to be talking about. I think it's really nice. The one main thing that's preventing me from wearing it is that it is 100% wool, and it is really warm. Like really warm. If I were to wear this with like no coat, I'd probably be fine down to like 40-degree weather, which is fine if I'm outside, but it doesn't really work well from walking outside and then being in a classroom and then walking outside. So it's not great for transitional. It's more good if you're going to be outside for longer periods of time. Yeah, it's really nice. It's pretty soft. It doesn't feel itchy at all, which is something I was worried about because sometimes my skin can be pretty sensitive. But yeah, this yarn is superwash, which is not supposed to pill a ton, but it is also a single ply, which will pill more. So I am starting, it's not pilling per se, but it is getting a little fuzzy, which I don't mind. I don't really mind pilling unless it's like egregious. I don't mind signs of wear on my clothing, but if I do in the future, I can always depill it. Do I have anything else to say for this? Oh yeah, so like I said, I ended up dipping a little bit into my last hank of 100 grams, but I do have a decent amount left. So I need to figure out something to do with the leftovers. And I was thinking maybe another like ribbed hat. If I have enough for that, that could be cool. anything else? I could try, okay, so I've been meaning to knit socks, and I feel like that could be a fun way to try out socks in a wool, because I already have it. It would be it's a really chunky yarn to do socks. Most people probably wouldn't, but there are patterns out there for like worsted weight socks. So I can try that with my leftovers. Oh yeah, another thing I wanted to talk about is that so all of the edges I cast off ended in ribbing, and it's 2x1 ribbing, so I have not been able to find any resources I had not previously for a good like sewn binding, because I did want to try like an Italian binding or a tubular Italian cast off or a tubular cast off. But I haven't found any tutorials for that for 2x1. There are for 1x1, and then My Love Knits has a tutorial for 2x2. But none for 2x1, and I'd like tried to make it up, but I hadn't actually done it for real, so it wasn't going to be successful. So I ended up giving up on trying that. But there is this great article I found that compares 12 different stretchy bind-offs and compares their elasticities and their flares, which is super helpful. But I ended up using one from that, and it's a YouTube tutorial. I will put the link and the name in the description, obviously, and I will put the name on the screen. It's a really great tutorial. Basically, you so you have one stitch on your bind off needle and one stitch on your other needle, and you like twist it one way for purling and one way for knitting, and it works really well, and there's like no flare. Like, look at that, it goes straight up. It's a little bit of a more obvious edge, but it has a lot of stretch. And it was a really good solution, and it's super easy to do, and it's just a knitted bind off, so you don't have to worry about a thread tail and measuring that. So it was a great solution for my problem. In terms of issues that I have with this, they're pretty minor for fit issues. The big thing is that, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but the arm side, the raglan stitches go down really low. It's basically a batwing, not quite. But yeah, it looks a tiny bit strange, but also batwing sweaters are a thing anyways. So I could just claim that that's what I meant originally, which it wasn't, but I don't think it affects the fit that much. I don't really mind it. It just adds a little bit of extra fabric in the armpit, but it doesn't inhibit my wearing of it. I have full range of motion, so I don't really have any issues. Another thing construction-wise is that I mentioned I continued the purls down from, sorry, I'll show you. So I have the neckline ribbing, and I continue the purls, and then I did raglan increases on either side. And it doesn't affect actually how you see it on the outside, but I have noticed on the inside that my purl stitches can look super uneven. Some are a lot smaller and some are a lot bigger than others. And I think this bigger ones are ones from increased rounds, or maybe it's the other way. But I wasn't sure how to fix that other than just trying to pull it really tight, which I did, but that didn't work super well. So if anyone has any tips for that, please let me know. I would like to improve that. And then the last thing is that I mentioned this was from a frogged project, so a lot of this yarn had been previously knit, and I just frogged it straight from the project as I knit it, so I didn't have to worry about rewinding it, which was fast and efficient. But if you're reknitting yarn, if you want it to look super good, you really should make it into a skein and then steam it or rewash it to get all of the little kinks from the yarn out, which I didn't. So you can notice the top part I think looks more even. I don't know if you'll be able to tell on camera, because that's what I knit from an unknit hank. But then as you go down, especially on the sleeves, that was unwound directly from the previous sweater, so it's a lot more bumpy and the stitches look a lot less even. Not to the point that I think it's unwearable, but that is something else that blocking would help a lot with, or just washing, a very preliminary wash would help with. So I do wanna block it eventually. Mostly just to test out the technique. So that will help with that, and hopefully the stitches will look more even. Alright, so that is my first finished object, and I kind of have a second finished object which leads into one of my works in progress. So I will show you that now. So, so my second finished object is very, very strange, and the point of it was purely to test. But basically, it's a very large sock, and a very strange sock at that. I am making a Christmas stocking for a family member. A little bit of context: she knows how to knit, and she taught me to knit when I was like 5. But I hadn't continued with it until now. And she would always make people elaborate colorwork Christmas stockings with patterns and names and stuff. And I figured that now I know how to knit, it would be really nice to make her one too. So I found a free pattern online, which I will link, obviously. And I wanted to test it out, and I had never knit a sock before, and my understanding is that Christmas stockings are basically just large socks. So I wanted to test out all the techniques for heels and toes and things like that, just so I got them down before I knit the actual gift. So that's where this comes in. So this is just some spare, like really cheap dollar store acrylic that I had, but it's good for testing. So this was the first heel that I knit, and it is a short row heel. And I had done short rows before, so it was actually pretty easy to pick up. Yeah, it's a short row heel. I think it looks fine. Second heel that I knit, I tried doing a garter stitch because I thought it might be nice to have the texture. And I think the texture looks really cool. But for the actual stocking, there's no other places of texture really except for the ribbing, so I decided not to go with it. But I will have it in my arsenal for future use. And then the third heel is I was trying out a contrast color because I'm doing that on the real stocking. And then the fourth one was me trying out a wrap and turn heel, which worked well. I am more comfortable with short rows, so I thought I'd go with that. And then this was me testing out a toe. I kind of got bored, so I only did like half as many rounds of decreases to narrow out the toe as you're supposed to, but I felt like I got the message. And then right at the very tip, this is my first attempt at Kitchener stitch, clearly. Didn't do it right in all the places, but in the places that I did do it right, I think it looks super cool. So I will just pay attention really well and do it properly on the real stocking. So yeah, this is my test. Oh, and the reason that I did so many different heels in one is because I didn't want to like set up a whole stocking just to practice a heel. It's wasteful for yarn because I didn't need to, and it's a lot faster because I already had it, and it turned out well. It was a good test. I don't know what to do with this. It could just be like a pillow if I like stuffed it. Maybe I'll like give it to my school's knitting club and it can be a oddity for display. Maybe I can display it in my own house. I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, that's me learning how to make a stocking. And then I will show you the real stocking. So I only got one skein of each, so I can't show you the proper with the like tag and everything because I already took it off. But this is Wool Ease. This is the color Cranberry, and then, oops, sorry, it's coming out. This is a cream color. I think it's called Erin. I'm not 100% sure. I'll put it in the description box. But they're both Wool Ease, which is 20% wool and 80% acrylic, which I thought would work well for the stocking because it gives kind of like rustic wool feel, but it's also a lot sturdier because of the added synthetic fiber. So this works out really nice. And I got this from Blick, the art supply store, because I had a gift card. But then we get into the actual stocking. And bear in mind, this was my first stranded colorwork project, so be nice to me. So yeah, this is the stocking. I made a pattern on Excel for for the design that I wanted, which I can link to if you want to see it and use it. It's not anything particularly innovative, it's just like fancy little diamonds, and this is like a pattern of like a circle with a dot in it, and then like an alternating color with a circle and a dot in it. And a funny fact about this pattern is that I was out in Boston getting dinner, as one does, and I passed by this store that sells knitwear, and there was an item in the window of the store that had the exact same pattern of this stripe with the like circles on it, and I had never seen that before, and I just like pulled it out of my mind as a space filler. So it's really, I don't know, I think it's really cool to see how people can come up with things simultaneously that are exactly the same. So yeah, this is how it's going. I got the name on it and everything, and I have done the heel, which is a contrast heel, and then I will go to the foot. It's going pretty well, I think. This is what all my floats look like. I feel like they're relatively neat, although not being able to pull things like tight and secure makes me a little bit freaked out. But that's like just the nature of color work, I think. So I don't know. But yeah, so the way I'm doing it is I'm a continental knitter normally, so I'm holding the main yarn, which is the cranberry red yarn, in my left hand for continental, and then I'm throwing English style with the contrast yarn, which is the cream colored yarn. And that's working out pretty well, because I tried to hold them both in my left hand, and then they would get tangled, and one would pull and they'd get all twisted, which is something you can be worried about, and then it's a lot slower for me to throw them both. So this is a good combination of speed and like precision and like not getting tangled. So yeah, and it's got, I forget if I said, it's got her name on it, which is fun. Yeah, overall I'm really excited about how this project is turning out. I think it's really sweet. The only big thing that I'm worried about is that it looks really long and skinny. Christmas stockings, I feel like, are not usually this proportion. I feel like they're usually wider for this length. And maybe this is a little long, like, period. So I don't know if you think this is long or if it looks fine. I was thinking maybe I could unravel, if I decide once it's done that it's too long, I can unravel down a little bit, like past the ribbing and then into the body, and then redo the ribbing to hopefully take off some of the length. Because I feel like, yeah, because if I fold down the ribbing, I feel like it looks like a lot better of a proportion. But I don't know. I was just following the pattern. And it looked like a good proportion in the example. So I don't know what I don't know what I did here. But overall, very exciting. I think it looks super cool. Obviously, you can see it's a lot bumpier than my normal knitting. And just like tugging on it in both directions does a lot to help even it out and like distribute my floats and my stitches properly. Floats are what it's called. Floats are with the little strands in the back that you're not using. That's what floats are. But because of the wool content, I think it'll be nice to be able to block this, actually. And I've heard that blocking does wonders for color work and making everything lay flat. So yeah, I have to do the body of the foot, which I believe is called the instep, which will extend for a little while. And then I'll do the toe also just in this cream color. And then I will be done. And I have a decent amount left. I was thinking, because I wasn't liking the proportion and because it was really my first attempt at color work, that I could redo it with any leftovers I had with the red and the white. But I probably won't. I don't know if I'll have enough for that. And I don't know what I would do with two. I can use them for something else. Christmas stocking. Oh yeah, if you're wondering why I'm knitting a Christmas stocking in March, I don't know either. I got motivated now. It was just her birthday, so I'm too late for that. It might be a Christmas gift. It might be a middle of the year just because gift. We will see. That is my first work in progress. Alright, for my second work in progress, I have this Beginnings of a Sweater in this lovely like burnt orange brown color. It is the Barocco, actually I have a hank. Is the Barocco Ultra Alpaca Worsted Weight yarn. It is 100%, no, it's 50% superfine alpaca and 50% Peruvian wool. It's number 4 worsted weight. The color is called Mahogany Mix, I think. Doesn't say anywhere here. And I got 500 grams of this, which seems to be enough for me to make a sweater because I like them very cropped. So yeah, this is my progress. My swatch is still attached to the end. Let's see, I can like tuck it in. I'm knitting it on, okay, so I don't have a pattern for this. I'm improvising it. I probably should use a pattern, but I have one in mind that I kind of want to do, but it's not out yet, and I'm too impatient. I will touch on that later. But anyways, this is my progress so far. Probably should have put it on wider needles so you can see, but it's basically just a tube. I've got some nice 1x1 ribbing, and then it just transitions into stockinette. I'm knitting this on, ooh, I'm losing stitches. Okay, I'm knitting this on 4mm needles, which is a really nice size to work with. It's very pleasant to hold in my hands. And I think it's going really well. I really love alpaca. I think it's super soft, and then the wool gives it some structure, I think, is what people say. But it's really slippy. These are bamboo needles, not even metal, and it keeps like slipping off the end, so I need to be more careful with that. But it's been a very pleasant knitting experience so far. So my goals for this is to make something very similar to this sweater actually. It won't be similar in construction because this has got like a shoulder seam and then like set in sleeves that are like shaped with a sleeve head like you would for sewing. And I'm not going to be able to do that with this without a pattern, and I haven't found a pattern for that. But I really like the way this V-neck sits, and I want to replicate that, hopefully on this sweater. So right now, like I said, it's just a tube, but I'm going to work it up, and then once I get to the height of the armpit, I'm going to split for the front and the back, probably work up a little bit more, and then split the front into the two sides. Split the front into the two sides of the shoulder, and then I'll Kitchener, I think, stitch them to attach them to the back. And then I will add the collar, and then I'll just pick up stitches for the sleeves. So it'll be a very boxy construction, pretty simple, but I think it should go okay. And I'm not too worried about bulk. It works up as a relatively thin fabric, so I mean, there shouldn't really be bunching under the arm. Yeah, so I think this yarn is really lovely. As I've worked up the fabric, it feels very soft. The only thing is, because it's a mix, or maybe just because of how it's spun, there's lots of like separated fibers coming off, which blend in overall once you've got a bunch of work here. But I think they're a little bit stabby, like not on my upper body, but if I'm wearing shorts while working on this, it'll like stab into my thighs a little bit. So we'll see how that goes, but I think it should be fine. I have worn alpaca sweaters in the past, and it's been okay. So I mentioned earlier that originally I was purling incorrectly. I was creating twisted stitches, and that's because I knit continental, and I did teach myself off YouTube, and I must have just picked it up the wrong way because as I knit, I was wrapping my yarn the wrong way, because with continental, it can be, you have to do like an extra motion, or at least I do, to wrap it correctly. So for this ribbing, I tried something new out. I actually tried, I believe it's Russian purling, where you wrap your yarn the other way, but you also insert through the back of the purl loop. So you don't end up twisting your stitches, and I didn't have to do that extra motion with my fingers, so it ended up being a lot faster, and I really liked it, so I'm going to try to do that in the future, for all my projects probably. I like the way it worked for the ribbing, and I still need to figure out how that works with worked flat knitting so it doesn't mess with your knit stitches, but I think it was a good solution for me. So I mentioned that the pattern I wanted to use for this was not out yet, and that's because it's not. So my favorite things knitwear, prolific sweater designer, she has been teasing a new sweater on her Instagram, sweater number 20, and it's a lovely thick ribbed v-neck sweater, and it's like full of cables. Like, I think it's all cabled, and I've never done cables before, but I really want to try them. And I was meaning to make a v-neck sweater, and it seemed perfect. However, it will not be out till April. So I do really want to make it, and I don't know the gauge it's gonna be. It could be, it's not chunky, I don't think, but it could be like worsted, it could be DK. Oh, yeah, so this is like worsted. It feels pretty light, feels in the direction of DK. But yeah, I don't know when it's gonna be out, but I really want to make it from what I've seen. So if it does come out, and I haven't made much progress on this, and it's the right gauge for this, I might undo that sweater, but we'll see. It might not even be the right gauge. Also, it's probably not the right sweater for a beginner cable sweater, because it's full of cables. They're all like different sizes, probably a lot to keep track of, but I would like to try it. I think it would be fun, and if it doesn't go well, I'll just take it out again, because I am a chronic frogger. Alright, so for my last work in progress that I've been working on actively lately, I have this future hat. It's coming apart. I am using 100% cotton yarn for this. It's just the brand Premier, and it's called just cotton. It was from my local dollar store. And it was just easily accessible and relatively cheap, so I thought it would be good to try it out. It's not the best quality, it tends to split. It tends to shed tiny little fibers a lot, which isn't the best, but it's what I have, and I have it, so I'm going to use it. Right now, it looks kind of funky. It doesn't look that attractive as a hat right now. I'm not putting it on properly, I'm not doing it justice, but hopefully it will turn out well. So I'm following some guides for this, but nothing like the real pattern. But yeah, so the basic instruction is that you do a magic loop with X number of stitches. In my case, I started with 8, and then for every round after that, you increase by X stitches. So the first round, I had 8, second round, I had 8, third round, I add 8 stitches. So it goes from 8, 16, 24, 32, etc. But what I'm also doing is that I'm only working into the back loop of each stitch, which gives it this like corrugated or like ribbed texture, and creates these spirals, which I think is reminiscent to straw hats that are made of like a flat twine that are sewn and works like that. So I think that's pretty cool. And then the inside looks cool. The inside almost looks like how I'd expect an amigurumi to look, but I haven't actually made any, but they're like nice little blobs, like condensed blobs for stitches. So yeah, I have high hopes for this. We'll see how it goes. I am basing it, the inspiration is a straw hat. I think it's called the Raffia Cruiser. I will correct myself. From a brand called Lack of Color. That's very expensive, and I would not buy it, probably, because I don't wear hats that much. But I think if I were to make it, it could be a fun project to make, and then I would probably wear it more because I made it myself and spent a lot of time on it. So yeah, it's a cute little like close-shaped base, and then it's got a little brim that flips up. So that is my inspiration. This is very floppy. You might be like, I wonder how that's going to take any shape, especially for the brim. And I have an answer. I want to try to starch this. So I've seen a lot of people starch like lace, crochet lace and knit lace. And obviously you can like starch a collar, although I've never done that. So I like to try to do that to this to give it more structure. And I don't know if that's a really bad idea, because if it comes in contact with water, it'll come out. But if people do that for other clothing, it can't be that bad of an idea. So hopefully it will prevent it from help, stretch out and get out some of these wrinkles. And then once I get to the brim, hopefully it'll help it keep its shape. If it doesn't, I do also have wire that I can put in, just like a craft wire that's a little bit sturdy that could help hold the brim shape. If not, if the starching doesn't help enough, but I do think that I would prefer to not do that, although we will see. Yeah, I'm just doing single crochets all the way around. Made a flat circle, stopped increasing, went straight down, and I've got like an inch or so before I start the brim, I think, but we'll see. So that's my last work in progress. All right, now for acquisitions. So for yarn acquisitions, the what's it called? I just lost the name. Anyways, the wool and acrylic yarn I'm using for the stocking and the Barocco alpaca, both of those are acquisitions, but I've already talked about them. So I don't have any additional yarn acquisitions. What I do have are notions acquisitions. So for my order with Blick, I was ordering online anyways, and I ended up getting a whole bunch of darning needles or tapestry needles to help weave in ends, because I had one nice metal one and I keep it in the coin pouch of my wallet so I never lose it, and I had some plastic ones, but they weren't the best, and these are super cheap and I was placing an order anyways. So yeah, I think these are 2-inch lengths. They're nice metal ones, and I believe each package was like, each package was anywhere from like $2 to $5, so really cheap. So now hopefully I will never run out of these. And on the topic of never running out as well, we got a whole case of stitch markers. So originally I was just gonna get a box of bulb shaped safety pins, which is what these are. But I ended up getting ones that were specifically called stitch markers, because this came in a bunch of colors, and I thought having different colors would be nice, because then I'd be able to differentiate things if I so chose, like raglan stitches versus end of round stitches, versus like if I were going to put a pattern on something and I needed to mark it out. So I got these, and I think it's like 650 count. So hopefully, again, I will never run out of these, because for the most part, for my stitch markers, I've just been using little rounds of yarn that I tied with scrap yarn or like spare yarn, which works fine. And it's easy to just always make one if you don't have a stitch marker on you. But these have the advantage of being clips, so I can open them and close them and like place them. So instead of having to knit all the way around to place my markers, I can just count and clip them on to the needles where I need them to be. So that's a lot more convenient. And that's it for my acquisitions. and I don't think I have anything else to share, really. Thank you for watching my second episode of my yarn studio, where I share all about my knitting and crochet trials and tribulations and everything that I'm doing in terms of crafting. Hopefully when I start sewing again, I'll be able to do like sewing studio episodes or something like that, so that would be fun, but I don't really have the opportunity to do that right now. But this is really fun. I really enjoyed filming this second episode. It felt a lot more natural than the first one. Hopefully it comes off as more natural. I felt like it was easier to talk about what I wanted to share. It was nice. If you have any feedback of any kind, please let me know. I would like to get better at this. It's not a pro setup, it's just me filming on my phone in my bedroom with what little natural light I have. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Thank you for spending time with me. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have a lovely day.